Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the sunrise safari, where there is no sunrise on account of a thick blanket of cloud that covers the low veld of South Africa here in the greater Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry. Hello. Jean-Dre is on camera. That's his thumb. And it's marvellous to have you here with us. We're sitting on quarantine clearings, a clearings just near our camp, where there are some Impala fighting with each other and some wildebeest who have yet to get out of bed. While we wait for them to get over their recalcitrance and their indolence, let's tell you, of course, that we'd love to hear from you during the course of the show using the hashtag Safari Live or on the chat stream on YouTube. That would be marvellous. There are two other teams out today. One of them headed by Steve. He's driving Senzo around on Game Drive. And then we've got, I think it's Taylor on foot this morning with Fergusto. And in the final control room, we have the terrifying redhead Kirsten McSmith on the Vox. And on the keys today, I'm not sure. Who's on keys today? Luke. Luke, the hairy Skywalker. He looks more like the Wookiee, despite the fact that he has the name of the Skywalker. It is an absolutely beautiful morning. I'm told it's 19 degrees Celsius, 67 degrees Fahrenheit or so. That feels about right. Normally the weather report is nonsense. I was told again, the old joke. The weather report is normally correct, it's just the location that they get wrong, which I thought was quite good. There we go. Not much in the way of bird song on these kind of dim mornings. A few oxpeckers going. Some irritated francolins getting out of bed further down towards the riverine areas. And in fact, the sound that assailed our eyes as we stopped here, naturally it stopped just as you got to us, was what you're seeing there. You can't really see a sound, but there's the clickety-clacking of Impala skulls knocking into each other. And of course we're now getting towards the business end of the Impala rut. These males have got testosterone coursing through their bodies, I suppose in a manner akin to that at a teenage social. Thankfully, there's not much horn bashing at teenage socials, I don't think. I haven't been to a teenage social for some, 22 years now. Even more. Right, now apparently where Steve is, it's much darker than where we are now, and that's because of the vast size of Djuma. So let's go across to Steve and find out what time it is where he is.
Good morning, everybody. It is the same time where I am. I'm just a few kilometers down the road from James Hendry himself, on a similar mission, of course, to find beautiful and wonderful things. My name is Steve Falconbridge. I'm joined by the incredible Senzo Mkhize, the three-finger magician, on camera, and we are out in Djuma in the Sabi sands looking for whatever we might find. It is still early in the morning. It is a cool 19 degrees Celsius, 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice to be out here. We found ourselves a beautiful pair of raptors. This is probably my favorite type of raptor. It's just something about this species. They generally always found in a pair. You see that very characteristic sort of crest on the top, or the mask, should you say. A lot of people might mistake this for a bird similar to a falcon. These are in fact hawk eagles. Feathers all the way down to the feet. The African hawk eagle, you can see the very streaky sort of chest. Martial eagle will have black all the way onto the throat, a solid sort of hood, and then the spots will be just little spots on the chest rather than streaks in the case of this beautiful bird. I think it might be time for them to start nesting. Craig was showing me yesterday a potential nest site. that they have used in previous seasons, but that is on the complete opposite side from where we sit right now. But a beautiful bird nonetheless. Okay, so there's just something on raptors that I want you to... Yes, Christine, now very, very regal. Now, when I'm talking about the sort of streaky chest, it's important to pay attention to what those lines look like, because I can show you the markings of a raptor in my book here, and this will help you a lot with identification of raptor birds. You can see we got the very simple ones, the plain and uniform chest. Then you get striped or streaked in the case of this bird. Then you get barring, smaller raptors like the shikra when they're juvenile. Then down here, spotted. You can see that they're similar, but there's differences, definitely differences. Then mottled, blotched, and scaled or scalloped. This can help you quite a lot when it comes to identifying these birds. And obviously then the lowest on the rung here, have a look at the size of them in comparison to a fish eagle, comparison to a helmeted guinea fowl, and in comparison to a feral pigeon. This will give you the size dynamics of the bird, which will help you a lot if you see the size, and as well some of the sort of chest sort of coloration will help you really, really, really well in the identification of small raptors. But this one, in my opinion, quite an easy one to adapt or to identify. And we're going to move on. Let's go back to James with his Impala.
We're still with our Impala, as Stivovo, who's still in the darkness, told you. We're here watching them having a fight with each other. These two males, I would say the one on the left probably just past his 3rd birthday. I don't think he's definitely not the biggest male. He's sort of holding his own against the one probably 2 years older than him. You can see the width of the horns of the one on the right slightly greater than that of the one on the left, and in fact the one on the right is taller. And it looked, for a little while, we've been sitting here, of course, while you were with Steve, we've been watching them. It looked like the one on the right was getting the better of the one on the left, but the left one is continuing to fight his way towards some kind of mating opportunity. There are no ladies around at the moment watching them, so unfortunately his efforts will probably go unnoticed. He will have a nasty headache for the rest of the day, however. Robert, you're wondering about the interlocking of these horns and whether these two chaps here could possibly become interlocked. No, I don't think it does happen with Impala. You can see that the twists in the horns are fairly widely spaced, and I've never seen two Impala locked together. It's Kudu with their multiple twisting horns that often get stuck together. So I don't think these two guys are in any danger of getting caught. And clearly they have a mutual disdain, which would mean that they really don't want to get caught together. So there we go. That's the same. You can see a sort of dominance emerging here. The one on the right now, which was the one on the left, I think we should sort of give them names, really. Righty and lefty, but that will change as they sort of pirouette around each other. But one of them definitely getting up on the other. There we go. Some sort of dominance now being exerted. It's the one on the right now that's the bigger. Now there's a much bigger fellow coming in. That chap who came in was far larger than both of them. There, look how much taller he is. That's interesting. A veteran. And for now, that little sparring match seems to be over. Fascinating. No, here we go. Wisteria, you're wondering if they're really fighting or if they're just playing. No, this isn't play behavior. Coming to this time of the year, we're going into the main part of the rut. The mating will take place during the dark phase of the moon next month. So, no, this is serious. I've seen more vicious fights, but what's going on here is a definite sort of dominance display and dominance conflict. And you can see them often horning those little monkey pod trees. That leaves their scent there. And so they'll be trying to set up little territories here. This is prime Impala territory. especially at night time. I can't tell if those are the same too in combat. I think it is. Now, this chap is sick and tired of this now. Alright, we're going to leave these impala now, head towards where we last had Hukumuri, the terrifying leopard whose name means chicken medicine. Great name, that. Let's go across to Taylor, find out where she's going to stroll. I think it's in the same direction that we are going.
I think it is in the same direction, James, but first we are looking at some ants who are moving their eggs around. How wonderful is that? They're up very early, much earlier than me. The only productive thing I can say I've done today is made a cup of coffee. Yeah! I was pretending to be an impala. Hello everybody, my name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Fergus Clark. Everybody now clap. Anyways, this is a live and interactive safari. We're on bushwalk. There's Herbie wearing his new hat. I don't think it's new. I feel like he's had it for quite some time. What was that little pose, Herbie? Hey? Very nice. Big smiles. Yeah. Anyways, so Herbie has told us this morning that we're going to be heading in that direction, in east, to look for leopards. We could possibly be finding Hukumuri, who knows? Or we could maybe also find Tundi. Herbie's got a theory about Tundi perhaps being in Torchwood. So we're going to try and solve some of the mysteries. We're also going to walk right past the dam cam at some point. It's a little bit dark and miserable this morning. I don't think we're going to get any rain. However, it's going to make tracking a little bit difficult, even though we're on the ground and a lot closer than James is peering off the side of his car. I was trying to have a look at some hyena track earlier and I couldn't even make out what they were. So hopefully the clouds break or at least lift a little bit to allow the sun to come through. You can see it's quite terrible, hey? I don't think grey's my colour. Anyways, I don't think grey's James' colour either. He prefers more the maroon. Right, off you go to Steve. Let's go find out if he looks fetching in the grey skies.
Yes, we are. I'm on the ground at the moment. We managed to come across the activity of some common fungus-growing termites as they are motoring around, rebuilding and colonizing their structure, doing some expansion work in these early hours of the morning before the sun's rays come out. And it's not uncommon to find them working on cloudy days when the UV is a little bit lower. And you can see the characteristic color in their bodies, very, very white in color. They don't have any melanin, so they're very subject to sort of being burnt by the sun. So that's why they have to build these colonies and these sort of mounds, and all of these are little tunnels that they're actually going to be moving in and around. And once they are covered, they can actually work throughout the heat of the day in their ever-searching quest for organic material, cellulose material, which they will then feed to fungus within these mounds, and that will produce all the food that they require for their growth. Absolutely marvelous how it's actually warm over here. These termite mounds have got a very unique design inside, which allows moisture to maintain inside and heat to move through. So it keeps it at a relatively 30-32 degrees Celsius all the time, and as soon as it gets too hot they open some vents. As soon as it gets too cold they close those vents, and the breakdown of the organic material inside there is what keeps the temperature up, and by breaking that down it slowly just keeps the temperature at that level they want it to be. Absolutely marvelous. And all this freshly built. You can see the color of the soil, it's a bit darker, it's come from quite far down, and that's how the termites bring the nutrients from deep down up to the top, which is what makes this little mound that I'm sitting on. You can see it is very, very well eaten, whatever's growing on here, versus the surrounding area. So that is marvelous from termites. A good start in the morning. Very good start in the morning. Carla, it's a very good question. I mean, that new growth that you can see just here has probably been done from yesterday. That new brown dark color, that's quite fresh, quite new. There's thousands of termites busy active with it. But these mounds they can go inactive, they can be built, they can go for years and years and years. It all depends on sort of the rainfall gradient. Is there a lot of moisture? Is there a lot of food available? And these mounds can live for hundreds of years. The queen obviously will go through stages of development. Some queens can live up to 20 years depending on the species, some up to 30 years. But as the queens move or die out, new queens replace them. So these colonies, or these kingdoms, you could almost call them, can go on for years and years and years. Very, very long time. They will just keep moving, keep breaking down organic material. And it's very interesting, because we talk about animals out here. It's very interesting to know that termites are actually responsible for much more grazing than a lot of our herbivore animals. So you need to take them into account when planning sort of a reserve or looking at the feeding potential. Wisteria termites don't ever seem to stop for a break. I think when temperatures get a bit cooler, they slow down, but because they maintain the temperature inside that mound at an optimum temperature for the fungus to grow, their bodies are constantly at the right temperature to move, and they are constantly busy. The only time they won't be busy outside of the mound is when the sun is shining. And so now, while the sun is not shining, they are able to do a lot of extra repairs and expansion on the outside here. And once they've got the tunnels and the mud, they'll be able to work outside, but obviously sheltered. You see those tunnels being built there? And what amazes me is they all know what they're doing. There's just like a pheromone communication that tells all of them to pick up soil, bring it here, add it on there, move back, pick up more soil. They do not stop. They do not stop. There really is an incredible show of sort of one unique organism. You couldn't really call a termite an individual. You look at a termite colony as an individual because they are all related and they work as one individual unit would work. Almost like a human body works in conjunction with itself to serve all the other parts. That's how a termite works, almost like one huge individual, which I find very interesting. It's all for the benefit of their genes. Azura, it really depends on the species. You know, some species can live for months, some can live for a few years. It really depends on the species, but I wouldn't say more than a year or so for an individual termite. But I am then really guessing. I don't know if even that statistics is known in the termite world. I'm having a look in the book, and there's no real age of what they go to, because it's very hard to identify one termite and then to know that in a year's time it is the same individual. So very, very hard. But there's any individual that dies, any termite that dies, just gets recycled back into the soil, back into the whole group of everything. So it's just a constant re-spinning process. The females can get quite big, with over 35,000, 40,000 eggs a day that they can lay. So anything that dies, they just keep getting replenished. And what I find amazing is, depending on what has attacked the termite mound, for example, say an aardvark managed to get in there and killed a whole lot of soldiers, or matabele, stinging ants, got in there, managed to kill a whole lot of soldiers, and a few workers sacrificed themselves outside trying to seal the breach. The queen knows exactly how many died, of what caste, and then she sends out pheromones that say, we need this many more workers, this many more soldiers, and the colony just is all right again. So I find that really, really super interesting, how they communicate. They just know it all. Very, very. Now I've got a quiz question for everybody out there that you can send through to #SafariLive before we go over to Taylor, and I want to know, what is the closest relative to the termite? Okay, send that through to #SafariLive, and on that note, we're going to go back over to the Bushwalk team, Taylor and Herbie on foot.
Well, I'm on a little pedestrian pathway at the moment, and Steve, I've seen no termites or the closest living relative. Good luck with that quiz. However, this pathway goes down and through the drainage line, as I assume it's going to be the quickest route to get towards Chele Pan. But it's some exciting news this morning. Herbie has found Hukamuri's footprints, which are here. Hello, Hukamuri's footprints. You can see it's very difficult to see them. Let me just shuffle out the way quickly. But the light is really, really poor today. But here's the back of the foot, and then here on the toes. And, well, here's his funny little he's got interesting toes up front there. Now, they're going in the direction that we want to be going in. However, I suspect they are yesterday's tracks from before he disappeared into the drainage line. So James is obviously going to be able to get to places a lot quicker than we will ever be able to dream of getting to. However, we can take shortcuts. So as James has to stick to the roads, we can jump on the animal pathways, just kind of like I was on. Maybe Herbie's going to take us to that pathway where I slipped the other day, because I kind of think that's the direction on the last sort of area that Hukumuri was seen. So that'll be quite fun. I'm going to try not to slip today. The ground has dried out a lot though, so it won't be as muddy. And then you see, if you want quiet bushwalking shoes, they have no grip underneath. I'm also can't balance this morning. I was awkward. I don't know why I couldn't. Yes, because I shouldn't be standing on this ankle. That makes sense. So yes, that's what we're going to try and do. Now, I just remembered, Kirsten, that I was like, why did I lift my left leg up? I probably should have balanced on my left leg. And anyway, so we're going to basically move around through here. I'm pretty sure once it lightens up a little bit, we'll start heading down into the drainages. For now, we're just sticking out into the open. It's like I said, it's a bit of an eerie day. And we'll see if we can find some sedges. I'm sure we'll find lots, maybe some purple nut sedge, maybe that white button sedge that James loves so much. I'm sure they'll be around. And who knows, maybe a kudu, family of a Nyala, a deka, or very relaxed steenbok. Anyways, you were doing a quiz with Steve a little while ago. Let's go and see if some of you have managed to get the answer correct.
I wonder if anyone has managed to get the answer to my quiz. We all know what organism it is. Lots of people talk about them. I wonder. Indigo Girl and Kalina, ants are related to wasps, interestingly enough. Ants and termites are very far removed when it comes to their relation. Yes, they both have a caste system, which means they have a king and queen, workers and soldiers, but they actually are very different when it comes to evolutionary development. Safaridine, not a beetle. Beetles are one of the most abundant sort of species out there, and termites are very different once again. Even though beetles and termites, a lot of beetles and termites share similar digestive ability when it comes to a process known as, or an enzyme known as cellulase, which enables them to break down organic material, which is very interesting because the fungus growing termites even have that enzyme, but yet they have a relationship with fungus. They can break it down, but they don't. So I find that marvelously interesting. Marvelously interesting. Mike, not a wasp. Wasps and ants are related. Everybody knows them. I'm going to give you a little clue. We all talk about them as being... James, Christine and Ermic, you are 100% correct. It is indeed the cockroach. The cockroach and the termite are the most closely related insect. So they would have branched off at some point, and the cockroach became more of a solitary insect, whereas the termites moved into a colony. So well done, those of you who got that right. Nice little quiz in the morning. Nice little quiz to get the brains firing. Some of you have probably been awake all day, so your brains are already firing. Senzo and I are only up for about an hour now, so it's nice to sort of get into the swing of things. Hey, Senzi? So we're checking our western boundary for, obviously, for beautiful things. But we've come along Vuyatela access from camp. Camp is over here. We've come along Vuyatela and we're coming down Impala Road here towards the bottom and see what we can find when it comes to possibly Shadulu females, tracks coming in. I know that Tristan had Hukumuri over here last night when he left him, and I know that it seems like Herbie's probably following up on those tracks, and James is quite interested to see where he might be. But I'm going to do a loop here and then come all the way back again and assist and help in whatever it is that we can do. But we will be doing some more quizzes this morning. We'll spend the first 45 minutes to an hour trying to see what tracks are coming in and out. And while we do that, let's go over to James and see how his tracking mission is going.
Well, my tracking's going spectacularly well in that I haven't found one track, and then we found some hornbills to show you, and as we got linked to, of course, they flew away. So now we have nothing but the vastness of the great African wilderness to show you in wide. There is a grey go-away bird up there. Can you see it, Chandra?
No.
It's almost invisible in the trees there. Just the only visible thing that we have, other than the well, you're in the right tree, certainly. Oh, and there's another one calling. Our cup beginneth to run over. So I found no tracks of hukumuri, nor tandi, nor talalalamba. But we will continue with great faith, as it is, of course, Sunday. Here we go. The sun, I'm assuming, has risen by now, behind a cloud bank so thick that there is barely any light penetrating whatsoever. Apparently that is all I have to offer you right now, because Steve has found yet another creature.
Yes, we have indeed our daily dose of a kudu. Here we have an adult female and her juvenile son, who's about probably close to a year old, 8 months to a year. He's following her quite deliberately with their big ears. I just love how deliberately they walk. They are so visible when they walk through an open clearing, and their pattern of walking is a very sort of weird style of walking, which works very well in thick bush, but when they're walking across an open plain, it doesn't work as well as they would hope. But their objective is to camouflage themselves in semi-open, sort of semi-dense bush, so a bit of a mixture between. And to see them walking through open clearings is they stand out quite obviously. And their noses are down. You can see quite often it seems as if they're grazing, but they're walking past and picking up little forbs along the way as they go. They are exclusively browsers, the kudu, and probably the largest antelope we find in the area. Eland would be the largest, but I've never seen an eland here. Have you, Senzo? In his dream, Senzo has seen an eland in his dreams, so marvelous. Kirsten hasn't seen one either, so we'll leave the pair of kudu missioning on, and we will continue on our quest. The birds are being relatively quiet. We had a few fly across moments before, but very difficult to capture them on camera when they are very highly mobile. Hornbills and batises and starlings all waking up in the morning. So I'm not sure if we're going to be expecting any more rain. It doesn't feel like it's going to be rain today, but it is nice and overcast. Definitely a good day for cats to be moving around. Maybe the nkuhumas will make another appearance back in. There were some buffalo crossing through, I believe, through the Djuma yesterday, and we know that there's often a pride of lions on their tail. Tracks of what seemed to be the tortured pride on our eastern boundary, heading all the way north yesterday. Doreen, the kudu are related to the bushbuck, the Nyala, and also the eland, which are all part of what we call the Tragelaphus tribe, which is spiral horned. They are ruminants, which means they've got a 4-chambered stomach, and those stripes are purely there as something called disruptive markings. It's there to work as a camouflage. The zebras also got stripes. They work as a similar sort of camouflage, but more of a distraction. more of a blurring thing, and the zebra is a horse type animal, and not a ruminant. So they've got a hindgut fermenting gut. Okay, so let's go over to a bird that doesn't have a hind fermentation gut, James, and some hornbills.
Go to a bird that doesn't have what? A hind fermenting gut. Yes, it doesn't have a hind fermenting gut, no. It is a high fermenting gut. Never mind, I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. It must be because of the morning. It does not have the same gut as a zebra because it is, of course, not a herbivore. It is more omnivorous. I'll tell you exactly what it eats. It eats small insects, beetles, ants, termites, flies, and their eggs or larvae. Meticulously, this is the most interesting thing, if you've ever watched them feeding, that hornbill there, despite its age, I think it's a youngster, you can see it's just slightly smaller than some of the others, they meticulously pick up small things off the ground. And my sort of normal way of demonstrating how difficult this is to encourage you to go and attach a traffic cone to the front of your face and then see how accurately you're able to A, put it on the ground, on the target, and B, not sort of knock yourself out. And I think it was Steve the other day who explained that their eyes focus perfectly towards the end of the beak, so they're able to pick up individual ants and fly larvae, as is indicated here. They'll also eat little, basically reptiles and what else would they eat? I suppose they'd eat anything they can catch, pretty much. But while there is an overlap with the much larger yellow-billed hornbill, that red-billed hornbill there, because of its slightly smaller beak, will just eat slightly smaller prey, basically. Drum, I agree with you. You say hornbills always look so grumpy. This little chap does look grumpy. He looks irritated with the morning, looks irritated with the temperature. He looks generally irritated with what I'm saying about him. And will probably shortly fly away. They're very good value, though, hornbills. They're often doing entertaining things, and because of the way they look, they just have, it strikes that they have enormous character, which is of course why they were chosen to be in The Lion King. Not so. You might just be able to hear him going, a morning song. Jandre being artistic there, you can see. Well done, Jandre. Good. That is called milking the most out of a sighting, everybody. Let us continue. We have found no sign of hukumuri or tandi. And we are now in the sort of central eastern parts of Djuma. Now, Street Devil, what a wonderful name that is for a Sunday. You want to know if we have here? We do, from time to time. I've unusually been quite surprised by how shy they are here. So we do have them, often, but they tend not to be particularly confiding, and in some places they become completely tame. Sorry, what was that, Kirsten? Oh, right, the signal pixelated as I said warthog, so we were talking about warthogs, everyone. The Street Devil wants to know about warthogs, and whether we have them here, which we do. Hukumuri, of whom I have spoken today and who we are looking for, is one such creature that loves warthogs even as much as Street Devil, possibly even more. Male leopards very much favour the eating of pork. And I suppose I should probably explain that. A big warthog, even a sort of decent-sized female warthog, is often too big for a female leopard to catch. And certainly there are less dangerous prey items for female leopards to catch. Males with their greater size are able to take warthogs. Seldom big adult males though, because big adult male warthog is heavier than an adult male leopard and has ferocious bottom teeth and tremendously compacted, powerful muscles. I mean, it really is astounding to think how much they weigh. A big male warthog can weigh 100 kilograms. That's 220 pounds. Now, I mean, if you were to put me next to a warthog, you'd probably say that I was heavier than the warthog, because despite my sort of, shall we say, less than impressive stature, I'm still taller and longer than a warthog. So they have a lot of muscle compacted into their little forms. And I must confess that I have to agree with the male warthogs, at least with the male leopards, that warthog pork is a good thing to eat, because it is certainly some of the most delicious meat I've ever eaten. Don't worry, we won't be having warthogs for breakfast. I have only eaten warthog once. Gabriella, you're wondering if warthog is a wild pig. Well, it is a type of wild pig. It's not sort of a domestic pig gone wild. It's just part of the pig family, which of course includes wild boar in Europe. It includes bush pigs, which we have here. It includes the warthogs. I think there are a few other pig species, but it also the giant forest hog of the Central African rainforests, and in that family of course is also the domestic pig. But of course the domestic pig has got any number of varieties and breeds in the same way that domestic dogs do, because of selective breeding by human beings. And I actually don't know, I think the ancestor of the pig comes from Southeast Asia, if I'm not mistaken. But that's in the dim recesses of pre-written history, so we're not really sure. There really is not a great deal of mammal life going on out here, so let's go across to Taylor McCurdy, who is enjoying her Sunday stroll.
I am, except for the fact that there's no insects out this morning. Been desperately looking for them. Anyways, what I wanted to actually show you was the site of where there was a waterbuck carcass, not too far away. However, we aren't able to go there for some bizarre reason all of a sudden. But anyways, there wasn't actually much left. It was quite cool, seeing as though we'd seen the entire carcass, and then I stole the skull. Remember, I took the horns of that big waterbuck, but we saw all the ribs, we saw everything, parts of the leg bones. Now there was literally just one piece of the bottom wall, and then a couple of ribs, and then was it. Hyenas had completely cleaned it up. Also, all the grass had recovered, which was quite nice. So maybe if I pulled back some of that grass and looked underneath, I maybe would have found a few more bones. But I think the hyenas did tuck into it. We're now going up. Berg is using his backwards walking strength, which the cameramen have to train twice a week and do. You clear. Now, two cats. This is actually funny that you've just asked if I've ever seen caracal on the reserve. I have. Only once though. I saw one on Cheetah Plains, which is kind of southeast from where we are now. They're very elusive creatures, but I had a dream about caracal last night. Oh, where is that? And I can't remember what the caracal were doing, but we came out onto a road. I think it was with VM again, and VM was actually on camera with me when this happened last time. And as we pulled out on the road, I said, VM, caracal. And then we tried to quickly get them, and we thought they were going to run away, and then they didn't run away. They were so relaxed, and it was a mom with its kitten. It was really quite cool. And then we did like this long segment. I was obviously dreaming of work. But that's what we saw. Maybe we're going to see it today. Doubt it though. The grass is very, very long at the moment. And well, I think they're pretty good at hiding away, as we saw. If somebody can maybe share the footage, well, you'll have to use your imagination, and just believe me, that's a caracal, because it's quite difficult to actually tell. Some go-away birds alarming. Oh, there they are, just flying off. They may have been alarming at us. They will alarm at us every now and then. I think that's the case there, because they didn't sound too terrified, just kind of notifying everybody. Right, we're hoping that as the morning warms up, so will the insects, and they'll come out for us. Let's go to Steve, well, who was on a roll earlier with termites.
Good morning once again. We are bumbling, and it is a quiet morning this morning, but it is okay. This is part and parcel, as I've said before, of what happens out here. And that was a little pearl-spotted owlet. Let's see if we can get him again. Did you see him land, Senzi? I saw him fly just to over here. Let's see if we can see him in this little bush. He might have gone. But we'll try and mimic his call, and maybe he'll come back. Was the little pearl-spotted owlet. I don't know where he's gotten to. Very small. I nearly got hit in the head by one yesterday. When we went out on drive, we had about 20 minutes without stream. We were looking at a little pearl-spotted owlet, and one actually flew right towards my head, which was quite something to experience, I'll be honest with you. And here we get him. Here's the beautiful little pearl-spotted owlet. Beautiful pictures, and I love this one because this is how they like to nest, in little tree cavities. So they are a very, very unusual bird with their feet. Their feet are enormous for their size, and they can take quite large food. In fact, they can take doves, which are actually bigger than them, bats, frogs, lizards, and birds up to the size of a dove, and they can do that because of their enormous feet. And I saw that firsthand yesterday as it flew directly towards my head and just missed my head. I had to have a duck. I believe Davy, cameraman Davy, got an owl in the hair about 2 weeks ago. I'd love to hear more about that story. So, beautiful pearl-spotted owlet. And the call I was doing is its territorial call. And sometimes, actually, the fork-tailed drongo mimics that call. They don't do a very good job, but you can kind of hear it. And why would a fork-tailed drongo mimic a pearl-spotted owlet? Why, indeed? Why would you do that? I wonder who knows out there. Hashtag Safari Live. Why would a pearl-spotted owlet's call be mimicked by a fork-tailed drongo? Let me know what you think. There's quite a plausible reason for it. And what we do know of the pearl-spotted owlet is it's regarded as a crepuscular hunter, and that means it's active at dawn and dusk at the most of the time. And obviously they would be active and hunting through visuals rather than sounds. And when you're taking bats, that's a good time, just as dusk is setting in. That's when they will take a bat or two from a roost, or from coming out of a cave, or wherever it is they might be spending the night, or the daytime, that is. Stanley times 3, you want to know a very interesting question. Owls or eagles, who has the better vision? Well, that is a good question. I'd say equivalently, they have come from the same background, but to eliminate competition, owls became active at night to change the time in which they are active. They feed on still very similar prey species by day versus, or eagles by day versus owls at night. So I'd say that the owl's eyesight is very good at night, and it's probably equally as good as that of a raptor's by day. But I'm not sure. I think the owl, because they're able to see at night, have got a much better visual or much better eyesight. But that is very hard to say. Evolving from a very similar sort of background, I'd say that their eyes are equivalently good, but the owl obviously being the master of nocturnal vision. Even though they can't see in pitch black, it's their hearing that assists them in the movement of animals by night. So, but good question, Stanley times 3. Okay, so Puma, you reckon that the pearl-spotted owlet is mimicked by the forked drongo to eliminate predators or to eliminate? No, it doesn't actually. If I had to do that call out here, it actually attracts other birds. The birds come towards me. They come and they investigate what's going on. Why is there a pearl-spotted owlet? And then they're going to come and try to chase them. Meme, you've kind of hit it on the head there when you say to scare away competition from a food source. And what will happen is they'll mimic the pearl-spotted owlet. All the birds will come together to try and find this bird, and then the fork-tailed drongo will swoop down and steal whatever food those birds might have been lavishing in. So they are very cheeky. They've been known to mimic meerkat calls as well and make the meerkats run away when they've just found a juicy scorpion or something like that. So they are a very cheeky bird, but I think actually quite intelligent. Quite intelligent. So that is one of the reasons they mimic. Another reason for mimicking all sorts of other calls is to make a more elaborate sort of bird song. When you're a black bird and you don't have too much prettiness towards you, you need to have an elaborate bird call to show the ladies how well traveled you are. How much of a dialogue you're able to mimic. Okay, well, we continue on here. Let's go over to Taylor, who's found a creepy crawly.
Well, what I'm trying to show you, sorry, I'm moving around quite a bit, is a jumping spider sort of sack, but I feel like I'm going to quickly just reposition. I think if I turn it towards you, it might be easier. It's really cool. There we go. Now, we've been seeing them making it on... Actually, I've been seeing the jumping spiders sort of weaving a silken sort of sack on more of the sawtooth lovegrass. Not today, though. And I think that she might have some eggs in here. This is quite cool. But there's definitely a spider inside. And every now and then she comes out to see what on earth is going on. Now, there'll be a couple of 100 eggs in there, which is really quite cool. Now, typically jumping spiders, of course, they don't make webs to catch food. They are active hunters. I'm going to just try and hold that part of it. Come on, come out and say hello. They're very pretty, big eyes, beautiful big eyes. These are my favorite spiders. I don't really like spiders, but I like jumping spiders. And I wish we could get a tiny microscopic camera to stick in there to see actually what's going on. So she'll lay her eggs inside this little sack that she's woven and will most likely protect them. I don't know if she'll go off and feed in between. I'm sure they'll be relatively safe here. Or if she's going to stay with them until they hatch and then disperse. It was very cool. Now, jumping spiders are quite epic, especially the males. They have these little hairs on their body. Sometimes they're iridescent in color. Some of you may be familiar with the peacock jumping spider and how the male will erect these hairs and move them around sort of in a fancy manner and try and get the female's attention. But it's a dangerous affair for spiders trying to entice a mate. I mean, they use either that, dancing moves. Sometimes they play them a little tune. Sometimes little jumping spiders will sort of drum as well. And they have little sensory organs that help amplify sound. Or sometimes a prenuptial gift will work too. It doesn't want to come out. Oh, that's a pity. There's lots around at the moment. So we'll see if we can find another one. I've been seeing lots and lots of them, but I don't want to bother her too much. But it's really quite cool though. Wasabi tsunami. I'd hate if we had a wasabi tsunami. It would be a very burny sensation. You've said that you feel all itchy now. No, you don't have to. One of the most terrifying things my mother used to tell me as a kid, because I'd often play with insects and do all sorts of things, and I think she was trying to deter me, And she said something along the lines of, if you play with spiders or whatever, they're going to lay their eggs inside you. And that has always traumatized me, the fact that a spider could potentially lay its eggs in my skin. Can you imagine something bursting and thinking it's maybe just a pimple or something like that, and it's not, and little spiders come out? That is a terrifying feeling that I have. I don't think it will happen, though. I don't know what spiders would do that, but let's hope that they're not here in Africa. Something that we do need to worry about at the moment, though, with all the rain that we have had, is the putsy flies. And I believe there's been an outbreak in Hoedspruit, funny enough, with all the sort of muggy, miserable weather, washing not drying properly, and the putsy flies laying their eggs in the lining of your clothes while it's out and trying to dry. And if you don't iron your clothes well enough, or you put them back in the cupboard still damp, well, good luck to you. You are going to have, well, a larvae burst out of you. Have you had one of those before, Ferg? You look traumatized there, like you've been to the doctor to get a putsy fly removed. No? Tasty. Tasty? Delicious. I suppose you can eat anything, can't you? Not things with milky latex, typically. We won't be doing that. So I just heard in Hoedspruit that they're having a bit of an issue at the moment with the putsy flies. Well, I got excited. I thought this was going to be some fabulous little caterpillar, but it's not. It's just a feather stuck on a bit of a leaf. Well, there is something else. There's another little sack of sorts in here too, just down below. I don't know who's made that. Who's trying to pupate, or is it a spider? Anyways, it seems as though wherever Steve is, he's managed to find a collection of insects. Let's go take a look.
Yes, we found the second species of fungus-growing termite out here. This is known as the large fungus-growing termite. You can see these very slow-moving ones. There are the workers, and these individuals here with the pincers are the soldiers, and they are standing here waiting to fight. And can you see what's happened here? As I disturbed them very gently there, they started headbutting the ground. Can you see that? See, there's some tapping on the ground. What they're doing is they're sending vibrations through to the rest of the individuals to say that there's something is amiss here. We're slightly under attack. And you can see how they're defending the hole here. Anything tries to get in, these soldiers would put their life on the line to kill them, which is quite interesting. Anything that tries to come through. And the thickness of the soldiers' heads is actually quite interesting, because if, for example, a little bit further down in the chamber, see, the workers are much smaller than the soldiers, and the soldiers will go through the chamber, and the soldiers themselves can actually stick their head into the hole itself and basically block the channel from the inside, and then obviously give their life for the sacrifice of the rest, while the workers sort of close in the hole behind it. Sort of ant species like the hissing ant, the Matabele hissing ant, are quite renowned for going in and hunting these workers and soldiers and picking them up and taking them back. So as soon as there's a raid on here, these guys will quickly go in, seal the hole. Obviously a few soldiers and workers will be lost, but the general protection of the entire colony will have been successful. You can see them all here, these workers, the soldiers. Look at them tapping there. Cat, yes, most termites will actually generate a stage called the owlet stage, or the reproductives, where male and female generate wings, and then they will leave a colony to fly through a nuptial flight. They'll land, lose their wings, find a mate, and then start an entire new colony. So those can be underneath the ground for over a year until conditions are suitable for. Obviously, conditions, when I talk about it, means moisture. They want moisture to be able to sort of soften the ground, because as two owlets come out, they'll fly, they'll land, and she needs to dig into the ground to start a new colony. And if the ground is very hard, it's very difficult for them to do that. So they do it generally after rainfall, and those are called the reproductives, or the owlets, also very commonly known as flying ants, but that's a misnomer. They are not flying ants at all. They are flying termites. You also get flying ants, which work in a very similar process. But this is marvelous, seeing all of these little guys. Reptilian research, they don't sting. No, they actually will physically bite with those mandibles. They'll bite and they'll clinch and hold on. There are some termite species in Africa, I think they're more in the desert areas, that have got such big mandibles. You can actually use them as stitches. If you, for example, cut yourself very, very badly on your arm, you'd actually be able to take the termite itself, make it bite and pinch into your skin, and then you rip the body off and the head will stay there and hold the stitches in place. I've never tried it myself, but I believe it does work very, very well. And it's going to hurt a little bit, but there's no venom or any kind of poison or anything like that transferred by the termites. It's all about brawn and strength, and those soldiers that do everything they can to protect their queen. And marvelous, another set of termites for the morning. Seems like the termites are busy. All the other insects are being very, very quiet. Anna Marie, that's a very good question. How far underground? I mean, maybe I can give you some perspective. These termites, being the large fungus-growing termites, I am guessing that is their mound over there. Have a look how far back the mound is. So this is them coming up underground, over here, above ground, and that is the mound over there. So how far underground she is very hard to say. There are numerous types of chambers that can be found within a termite mound, and whether she's underground or within the bowl itself over there, it's very hard to say. But to go in and excavate, it'd be very difficult. But inside there, the chamber above ground, underneath is just vast chambers and antechambers and dining rooms and ballrooms, and she's in one of those chambers deep down, close to where they are actually growing the fungus. And the fungus is what breaks down the organic material and then feeds all the termites. So where exactly she is would be very difficult to really ascertain. Well, James is following up on the family from last night. Let's go see his thoughts on the Egyptian gooses up at Buffelshoek Dam.
Well, the family is still here and still seemingly intact. There are 8 little chicks, goslings, swimming behind their mummy. Morning swimming lessons. It is very sweet to watch, isn't it? Now, Steve and I have something of a disagreement as to how competent these two are as parents. I don't know if it's the same two, but I'm pretty sure it is. They have lost a lot of chicks in the last little while. And I'm hoping that these 8 might do a little better than the last lot, who got picked off one by one. Ooh, and then we have the hippopotamus, of course, just passing by. 4 hippopotami in here these days. And apparently there were 6 the other day, no less. They're singing their Sunday songs. And there has been something of an algal bloom on the surface of this water, which is very green indeed. Like a sort of, well, I'm not sure. I'd like to say pea soup, but it's a bit darker than pea soup. Maybe a spinach or kale smoothie. Yes. Exactly. Very good. What very nice teeth you have. I see you've cleaned them this morning. Well done. They really do have the lives of Riley or awesome boredom, depending on your sort of perspective. Let's go back to the gooses if we can. The gooses, of course, are vegetarians, and I suspect that those little ones will be really enjoying the kale smoothie that they're swimming in. You see, they get to the side, and now they're eating the bits of algae there. Stanley times 3 or cubed. You're wondering about who's in front, the mother or the father, and I thought it was the female to start with, but I'm now struggling to tell the difference between the two. 1 second, you just keep looking there, and I will get back to you momentarily. Stanley. You can hear a very chorus. There's actually very little difference between male and female, so I'm going to guess that it was the female in front. I don't know why I'm going to guess that, but that's what I'm going to say. After I can't believe that we had... Sorry about that, Justin. 55 to 84 days, apparently, before they're able to fledge. How's that for a little fact stuck in my mind? It's only stuck there because we were asked the same thing a few days ago and I had to go and look it up. So 55 to 84 days, you know, somewhere around there, between just under 2 to 3 months. There they are, filtering out the algae. I think the lack of fish eagles, and there used to be a brown snake eagle in this area as well, and possibly a few more summer eagles, has resulted in the survival rate of 100% so far of this clutch of algae-eating 55-day fledging goslings. Gabriella, you said, don't they eat little worms? Well, I suspect that were they to find a worm, they may eat it. Interestingly, we had what is considered by many in the birding fraternity, well, those who know about it, to have the first record of Egyptian geese eating fish. So you won't find any text that says they eat fish, but we caught them eating fish here. During the drought, maybe it was out of desperation, maybe it was because there were so many fish and they were so easy to catch. These Egyptian geese ate huge numbers of little fish. But no, not a huge number of worms. So I will just read to you exactly what it says. Eats seeds, grasses, grain shoots, leaves, aquatic plants and young crops. Corn, sedge, commercial crops like wheat, maize, oats, lucerne, barley, groundnuts, sunflowers. So really, almost strictly vegetarian. But we have definitely seen them eating fish, and it does say occasionally they will eat invertebrates, but it says mostly ingested by accident. Termite alates they will go for. So almost entirely vegetarian. Sean, you say they walk like a T-Rex. I sort of see what you mean. You'll find that most birds walk a little bit like a T-Rex, being on 2 legs and sort of without hands in the front. So they look like they're going to overbalance all the time. So yes, I suppose they do walk a little bit like a T-Rex. But I think it'll be very interesting to see how this family gets on over the next few weeks. I think they've given birth this time at exactly the right time. Karen, you're wondering about how Mum and Dad there are going to protect those 8 little things from danger. Well, their main protection is to make a noise so deeply offensive that it frightens off potential predators. But, I mean, other than that, they could try and mob, I suppose, a potential predator. They could flap their wings and shout and chase them and bomb them. But they're not equipped with particularly sharp beaks or claws or spurs on their wings that are able to sort of physically deter predators. So they may sort of bomb and peck at them. But, you know, if something big like an eagle comes in here, well, then I just don't think they would have any chance, really. Beautiful little sighting there of all 8 goslings. Let's go across to Stephen now, who has got something that would very much like to eat these goslings, although it wouldn't be much of a meal.
Amazing that they are still 8. Such good parents they are at the moment, we are seeing. But as James said, time will tell. We have found ourselves a spotted fellow in the name of the spotted hyena. I wonder if he's going to come any closer. A little bit scared of us, I think. We turned around on this road because I found some tracks of a male leopard heading in the opposite direction. So we're going to see if we can follow up on them. Good chance it are Hukumuri's tracks, but I would not be one to assume to know an individual from their tracks. And just like that, the spotted hyena has vanished. Oh well, that is the way it works. Lots of activity on Djuma with hyenas. Their tracks are all over the place. They cover this place up and down constantly. If I find you a fresher track of that leopard, I will show you. Oh, Chris Rogue, you say that's Gwen's son called Sol. Well done. I think that's awesome. I don't know if I could tell hyenas apart. How are you telling them apart? They all look very similar to me. Keeping my eyes peeled. I didn't have tracks all the way from the road here, but someone else has got some tracks. While I see if I can find these, let's go back over to Taylor.
Look at... Oh, no. Come back. Be careful. Sorry, everybody. We've got a little, tiny little bushveld rain frog that we made crawl on my phone, but now it's getting very excited. And we just thought we'd keep it on my phone because it's a different angle. We don't often get to see underneath it like that. I'm going to put my sedge in the way there as a rail so he doesn't go tumbling off the edge. Pose very nice for us. Now, you know what? When I look at this frog, I think of Kirsten, who's in final control. I don't know. It must be their smile. This frog smile that kind of reminds me of Kirsten. Kirsten says she thought she was looking in the mirror. Ha ha ha. Of course, I'm just joking. This is a tiny one, though. Probably only the size of my thumbnail. And I reckon that it had buried itself somewhere because it was covered in sand when we saw it. And then we just scooped it up onto my phone. But it's so precious. We'll do a scale. You all know white button sedge? That is how tiny this little frog is. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's a bushveld rain frog. It's it's a little bit bigger than the iPhone middle button. A little bit bigger than that. But this is really, really so precious. Careful now. Steady, Freddy. Don't you go tumbling down again. Luckily I caught him. But we will put him back, I promise. I don't want to touch him too much with my hands. We know that they breathe through their skin and they can absorb all types of toxins. That's why I'm using the sedge to encourage him. And, well, like I said, we put my phone in the sand. We sacrificed my phone in order to have another look at it. It's quite cool. Do you know what's really cool is the reflection. Can you see? You can see you now. I can see you. Probably can't see yourself. But this is so beautiful. Now, sadly, as we go into winter, we're going to start seeing less and less amphibians. Venom, yes. Oh, did you get something in your eye? They do look like toads more than anything, but it is, in fact, a little frog. And they get much bigger than this. It'll probably grow 6 or 7 times larger than this. This particular species. It's the most common species of bushveld rain frog. And I'm really lucky, we're all really lucky that we've had an opportunity to see so many of them. Like I said, it's going to dry up now and they're all going to start to disappear. These kinds of frogs will estivate, so they'll actually go into a burrow of sorts and then sort of hide away in the cooler periods. But if we do get some random rain like we did last year in July, in the low veld, which we don't normally get, then there's a chance that they will come out. Now, he's a little bit puffed up, as you can see, and that's a defense mechanism. He's trying to make himself look big and scary, but it's not really working. Hey, it just makes it look cuter. Yes, you've got sand in your eyes. Oh, there we go. Caitlin, they don't necessarily scream, but they definitely do puff up when they are frightened. But I feel like this is the normal look of a bushveld rain frog. They kind of always have this bloated look. It's very rare that you get to see one that's not that's not all puffed up. I suppose when you are this small, you might have a little bit of a complex. But the other thing is that they either stuff their belly so full with termites. They love to eat termites. You be careful where you go. Don't you go any closer to that edge. And then they also have this bloated look unintentionally. I suppose. Look at their little feet, though. Look at those little toes. There's a nice opportunity to have a look at their feet. Let me rest it like that. How's that? There you go. Now smile, little froggy. No, don't go this way. That is so cool. Very, very, very cool. No, don't show everybody your bottom. That's rude. That's not very nice. I suppose this is a good model, hey? It wants you to get all angles, all its sides. Oh, it's precious. Amazing. Right. I'm going to find a safe spot to put this little bushveld rain frog off of the road so it does not get squashed or eaten. And off you go across to Steve. I'm not sure what he's found.
The most photographed bird in the Kruger National Park, Taylor. Let's see if we can hear him. He sounds like he wants to say something. Very pretty bird. The lilac-breasted roller. Starting to get quite vocal this time of year. I think they're coming into their breeding. They're going to start nesting soon, if I'm not mistaken. And like many, many birds out here, there we go, he's chirping away. Ruby, indeed, beautiful, beautiful colors. I always have told people that it seems as if the lilac-breasted roller is a bird that someone gave a color-in picture to a child, and they colored it as dramatically as they could, with as many colors as they could find. Surveying the area, looking for any movement of insects on the ground. The sit and wait specialist, when they do see an insect, they will flop down and grab them. And as Taylor said, the insects seem to be quite quiet this morning, and so the roller is just sitting up there waiting. Beautiful. Thanks, Sands. Okay, well, let's carry on. These tracks of the male leopard are still continuing along this direction, but this is part of the area where they disappear and potentially have crossed west into Msumbambili. But not sure who it might be. Chances are Hukumuri, but then I'm only assuming. There we go, there's another lilac-breasted roller just landed there. Very, very pretty birds. Indeed, Mrs. Grumpy, if Easter was a bird, it would be the lilac-breasted roller. Okay, so here we are approaching our southern boundary now, and we are quite far in the west as well, so our south sort of western boundary. And we might drive along that, see if we can find any tracks coming in of lions, perhaps. Or another leopard. Well, it seems as if James has had some luck. Let's go see what he's found.
Oh, we've found a terrestrial mammal here, an impala. Now this one is very easily aged as being just over a year old. Well, about a year and a half. You can see their horns are the right size for that. And because they're all born in November, it's pretty easy to age them. Oh, that was a fantastic sighting, wasn't it, Andre? A real classic. Aegis, you say, have I ever seen a horned creature poke another horned creature's eye out? You mean like a sort of unicorn might do to another unicorn, that sort of thing? I've never seen it happen live, but I have seen, I think, the results of it. We had that impala live around the Leadwood area. Oh, sorry, we keep losing signal, everybody. No, around the Leadwood Road area, and then he used to go off towards Treehouse Dam, and he had only one eye. And we're pretty sure that that's how he lost it. He could have lost it running away from something and spiking it on a thorn or on a stick or something like that, so I'm not sure. But old Nelson had one eye. I think it's fairly uncommon for them to lose eyes. They're boxing.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. You're with us now. We've got a small little bird party of some hornbills and some southern white-crowned shrikes. Probably a bit of a feeding party with regards to insects. I'm not sure where the shrike has gone. There he goes. He's landed back. Oh, there's one. Beautiful. One of our cooperative breeding species. I've got a very strange sound. They sound like a squeaky toy. The squeaky toy you'd give to a dog. And they are here with a few hornbills, so I'd assume. Did you hear that? So I would assume that there's some insect population that was blooming here, that they were busy feeding on. They're not too close to a termite mound, but who knows? There is actually a rather large one on the right. Possible that there were some termites on the ground they were feeding on. Okay, yeah, they're landing on the floor there, so I'm going to assume that there are some termites, just like what we've been seeing already this morning, and the hornbills would go in there. The soldiers won't have much success against chasing off a bird like a hornbill. They mainly work for keeping invaders in the form of ants out of their hole. Marvelous, a little bird party. Mike, how does the hornbill differ from a toucan, apart from color and consonants? I think that's about it, Mike. You know, the toucan fills a similar role to the hornbill in the environment they're in. The beak forms a very similar sort of function. I think they're just more of a fruit eater than an insect eater. That's all I can assume. I really don't know too much about a toucan, apart from the fact that they advertised them on cereal in South Africa for a very long time. I think it was Fruit Loops, one of our cereals we have in South Africa, had a toucan. Other than that, they look pretty similar, and I think they fit a very similar role to sort of more of a foresty type of hornbill that we might find, and I think they feed primarily on figs and fruits rather than more of an insect diet. But then I could be wrong. You do get quite a few similar bird species around the world that fill that sort of niche in that environment, that obviously with the absence of that species, another species fills it, and they fill it in a very similar fashion to that of a species in another continent. And beaks, shape and size and coloration and all that will determine exactly where in the system these individuals fit. Keeping our eyes peeled in the big marula trees for a spotted leopard, which should always be nice. We weren't able to find too many leopards on your Saturday. Today is the day. I'm going to go back in over here. No further sign of those tracks. I'm not sure if he did indeed cross, but we'll keep driving around. Ooh. Can we get these, Senzi? Ah, they're moving too quickly. There we go, there's one. Beautiful, another cooperative breeding species. This is called the white-crested helmet shrike. Very easily confused in name to the southern white-crowned shrike. They are also a cooperative breeder, though, found in a breeding group where you have an alpha male and female that do the egg laying, and it's generally the alpha female that does all of the incubation, whereas the rest of the family unit will bring food and assist in defending the territory. Hear that bill snapping. There's their laser call. A nice little flyby. Marvelous. Marvelous. They're always in odd numbers as well. I'm not sure why. Seems to be the cooperative breeders are always in an odd number. Okay, well, we're going to go over to Taylor, who seems that she's in some deep contemplation. About the difficulties you might be having over that side with Taylor. Maybe her reflection or deep contemplation was a little bit too deep and it messed with the signal. I'm not sure. There were just some tracks there of a lion, but heading straight south into Little Gowrie. So that's a pity. We're finding the tracks, we're just not finding the animals. We're picking the because we know these animals like to drink. And who knows what success we may have this morning. We're going to head now towards Treehouse Dam, and hopefully we find something special along the way. No doubt there will be some more birds for us to have a look at shortly. Okay, well, I think James is out there. He's busy with something, not sure what, but let's go see what he's up to.
Well, what we have is some lion tracks, and we have driven over the lion tracks on our way towards Buffelshoek Dam. I can now see them. I thought I was being so very careful. Herbert is on them now. Yes, they're going down the road, and they're going in here, and there are Franklin's alarm calling in there. Here they come. This is really appalling that I managed to miss this lot. There they go in there. This is very good news there. Franklin's alarm calling in there. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have some luck. Keep looking off to the right-hand side. I would have got out to show you the tracks, except they're not very obvious in this light, which is obviously why I missed them, isn't it, Jean-Andre? No, he says. He's really very kind. Let's just be a little bit quiet now. Let's see if we can hear the alarming francolons. Yeah, no, there's Herbie and Taylor are on the tracks over there. And Fergusto. You can just see some movement there. And then with any luck what we'll hear shortly is some very loud growling, then some swearing, and then we'll drive in and have a great lion sighting. Observe how beautifully camouflaged Herbert's hat is. He may as well be wearing a miner's helmet with the light turned on full. And Taylor's is the same. Fergus is the most camouflaged of the lot, and he's walking behind. So let's continue driving along here. And we'll just do a little loop around. But there were some Franklins going beep, beep. Now I can't hear that anymore, so let's go across to Taylor and find out exactly where the tracks are going. It's disguised.
Well, we don't really have too many tracks going through here. I'm going to have to keep my voice down. Basically, we picked up the tracks a little bit further down, and I was going to tell you all about this. Just move this out of the way for Ferg. A couple of little spiders. But the entire time we've been walking up Drakensberg north, and the last time you saw us with that frog, there's been a constant chatter. Watch out, Ferg, you're going to get a branch there. No, even worse. Sorry, I'm trying to guide Ferg so he doesn't fall over backwards. But there's a constant chatter of birds. From the go-away birds, they definitely were shouting at us at one point, but then they flew further into the drainage and then carried on. And then the Franklins have also started. So they're in there. The lions are in here. They're definitely in here. So a little bit further away, a couple of 100 meters away still, but they sound like they're moving. James is going towards Central, I would assume. That is the next road that comes up, but it's still a fair distance away. I just heard him race off, so we're going to keep going. But again, we're just going to keep our voices down. I can't really talk too loudly, and we're not going to stop because I need to stay behind. We need to stay behind Herbie. And we need to listen. We need to make sure that we no, we don't know which pride of lions this is. Herbie says the Nkuhumas. I'm saying the Torchwood pride because they've been hanging around this sort of northern corner of Torchwood and sort of around Buffelshoek Hook as well. I don't know what these lions are like on foot. I know the Nkuhumas are pretty relaxed. Most of the time cats will get up and run when they see us anyway. So Carol, it kind of depends. We're walking through a very, very thick area at the moment, which is why I actually should be very quiet right now, so that I could hear any rustling of leaves. I could hear the slightest growl. There's a duiker. There goes. Duiker has been flushed out. But we need to be quiet. So I'm actually not going to talk. I'm just going to move through here very, very quietly. You can see what we're walking into now. When you're on a walk like this, you need to make sure you keep quiet. Like I said, you don't want to miss any signs. So while we try and navigate through this thicket and get closer to potential lions, off you go back to James.
Hello everybody, again. We had some viciously alarm-calling Franklins right about here. So that's why we've driven off the road to have a look. But I then did see an Impala. What we're looking for is this sort of floating shape of a lion ship in the sea of grass. There's one Impala. Let's just turn off here. I'm not going to go busting through here for two reasons. One, of course, well, it's just a bit destructive if there isn't a confirmed sighting. And secondly, Taylor and Herbie are moving towards this area, and we don't want to make so much noise that they stand on a lion's tail and not realize. Squirrels alarm calling now as well. Further down. And birds. Okay, I think they're just behind that Impala over there. We're not going to bash through that way unless there's a very clear path. There's a road not too far from here. A couple of holes and things. Come on, Wendy. Deeply aged old bat. It's not a complaint, Wendy, I promise. It's merely a statement of fact. Wendy is this car, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. Now, let's go back out. There's a road not far. Let's not make too much noise for Taylor and Herbert. Ow, 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 ow. This is not the way we came in. lovely crunching noise. Okay, we're out now. Let's just nip around the corner here. I know you're all very excited. I'm also very excited. It always seems that the road that you want to take is always further away than you think it is. I'm just wondering on our best approach. I think we must take the road. There's a little game path that pops out there. It's always tempting to sort of cut into the bush. See if you don't get lucky. Now Mrs. Grumpy, you say, would Franklin's alarm call that Impala? No, they wouldn't. But they would absolutely alarm call the people if they didn't see them coming and suddenly they were shocked by them. Certainly that happened to us a few times yesterday. And, I mean, it's possible that the Franklins I heard spotted Herbert and Taylor and Fergus, but I think they were a bit far away. Now, I would imagine that whatever's coming through this block would emerge somewhere around here. Sort of clearing over here. But I would also imagine that they're probably a little distance from here, so we'll just go forward, turn off and listen again. That's Andre's camera alarm calling. There are some cisticulars calling, but that's not often a great indication. Nothing particular going mad at the moment. Let's sneak slightly forward. It's these sort of clearings that I would expect them to pop out into. There you can hear the cisticular going. But otherwise just the peaceful call of the gin spot batis. And one or two hornbills. It's difficult to be patient. Doreen, you say you reckon that lions and leopards would like to get rid of all the alarm-calling creatures like the squirrels and the birds that shout at them. I think you're absolutely right. Except interestingly, that impala that we disturbed wasn't looking anywhere towards where this alarm calling was happening. So either that was because he was terrified by us, or because he doesn't understand the language. Alarm calls, of course, are one of the most obvious examples of inter-specific communication. Monkeys alarm call and birds will look towards it. These birds alarm call, the leopards know exactly what they're doing, and they flick their tails up in that sort of resigned flag of truce. Now I think we're going to have to be fairly patient and just wait here, just for an update from Herbert and Taylor, because those lions, or quite possibly leopard, but they were on lion tracks, could either continue in the same direction and pop out here, Alternatively, they could turn and go down towards the drainage system. So let's go across to Steve, who I believe is having a coffee break. It sounds nice.
We have stopped at the dam. We had a little bit of an alarm call session from some guinea fowl. We went in, we followed up. I thought I'd be quite certain. There, you can hear them. We can hear them calling. We might go have another look. The guinea fowl are just in the thickets here to our west. And to me, that call is quite reliable in the morning as to the presence of a predator. They were making a lot of noise before. We went in there, we didn't find anything, but they're not making too much noise at the moment. So maybe they're having, what would you call it, a false alarm call morning. So as James was following up on alarm calls from Franklin's, it's very important to hear these calls and go have a look. Lucy, I've only heard the guinea fowl make that one chattering call. That is their one alarm call, and it could be a bird of prey. It could also be a cat. So that's something to pay attention to. And I have been looking out in the sky because they went into the thick bush. It's possible that an eagle came over at one point that they saw just before we got here. I'm not sure. But Franklins, when you see Franklins and there's a leopard, the Franklins will be making an alarm call and they'll be sitting on top of a bush. These birds were inside the bushes, so possibly it was the fact that they saw a bird of prey fly over. Quite often you'll see if they see a leopard, they'll actually come out into the open and kind of look at him as a group, which they didn't do now. So it might have been a bird of prey, but we didn't see it. It's good to follow up nonetheless. And it is birding. It's a quiet birding morning at Treehouse Dam. There was a heron here initially that he's moved off, but maybe we have a quick look at the dam there, Senzi. You'll see all the green growing in there, all the algal blooms from the rain that has pushed the organic material down into the dam. And there's a whole lot of life generating in there. And that is a lot of what fish will feed on, the vegetative matter, and that's providing a huge amount of food for the heron and all of the other birds that we do find in and around these water sources, such as Hamakop, the green-backed heron. We had a grey heron here just before, but it has since flown off with the alarm calls of the guinea fowl. You can see that beautiful green tinge. Natural process.
That's shading from the tree.
Beautiful reflection there of the marula tree. Don't forget to hug a tree every day. Wisteria, I don't think the algal bloom will affect anything drinking the water, but what it does do is it takes oxygen out the water. You get these algal blooms which actually cause eutrophication, and oxygen is removed, which can lead to the death of fish in these systems unless there is oxygen coming back in and stuff coming back in through the flow of water. Essentially these ponds will dry up and a lot of them, everything inside will perish. But drinking it, we would struggle to drink it, but most animals out here have got a very good, strong constitution with regards to their belly. But I think we might struggle a little bit if we drank it. Or most people would anyway. You can get used to it. Your tummy gets used to these things. So, no leopard. Guinea fowl, you were lying to me. It does happen. It does happen. These birds get a bit spooky or spooked. We'll carry on towards Twin Dams and see what's going on that side. Come from there. Find out where James is and then make a move to avoid him, of course. And while we do that, let's go to the man himself, Mr. James Hendry.
We unfortunately have got no further news. I've just driven further down the road to have a look-see. I can't get hold of Herbert at the moment, possibly because they are concentrating so very hard on the tracking expedition. That same testicular in the same place is still yelling his head off. Let's just go back around to where we were and see if we don't just get lucky. There's another small clearing up ahead here. Of course, these lions could easily have just gone to sleep. Ah, the battery has died on Herbert's radio. That's an absolute disaster. Oh well. Taylor can still get hold of us via the final control room. Towards Central Road. Okay, well then we're going to turn round again. That's good news. And apparently Nyala Road North is where we're headed, where the signal is about as good as the government of Gabon. Alright, let's keep going. Very frustrating when it gets like this. Alright, let's head across to the bushwalk team, find out from them how they're doing behind the tracks.
Well, we're not doing so well, unfortunately. It's quite thick in here, and I have a suspicion that it is the Torchwood Pride that we are tracking, just because of the direction that their tracks come from. We know that the Nkuhumas have been on Simbambili. I'm not sure if they're still on Simbambili, and it's not impossible that the Nkuhumas could walk this way, but those cats are even a little bit skittish in the cars, and I think with everything that's changed at the moment, the Nkuhuma's having a big boxing match with the Torchwoods being on Chitwa, which is quite strange, in fact. I think they are a little bit nervous, because when we approached that sighting, my first sighting of the Torchwood Pride, they were very, very jumpy. They did settle down. I've never walked them on foot. I can't imagine that they would be relaxed with us on foot if they're a little bit nervous at the moment with the vehicles. So from what I could hear, it sounded like the birds were sort of alarming further west of us. So I think James is going to head round and perhaps go and check around Nyala Road North, maybe Central, all those sorts of areas, kind of where we've come from. But again, we don't know which pride of lions it is. Anyways, what I have in my hand, and I've been carrying them around for quite some time, is a selection of things. Oh, I've broken one of it though. Let's have a look here. That's the product placement with feather and two types of sedges. So the feather, I'm not sure who the feather is from. It's a brown bird of sorts, so it could be ranging from an Egyptian goose to a tawny eagle to what else? Lots of other things. I'm sure you can all start guessing. And then the two sedge species that we've got is the white button sedge, obviously very easy, and the other one is the purple nut sedge. Now, the purple nut sedge you actually find all over the world, in Europe and Australia, and then, of course, in Africa too. And it is very, very important, specifically in Central Australia, where the purple nut sedge has a massive tuber that's really high in carbohydrates, so it's a good food source. So, for instance, the Aborigines would have utilized that plant heavily to get a source of carbohydrates. And then all the sedge species in the world, very, very important. And it's why it's important not to harvest them for too much. Unfortunately, a lot of people do harvest them. Firstly, water purification, as we know. So in any wetlands, they're really good to have around. So a lot of lodges out here try and use a natural sort of filtration system to get rid of their grey water. Wetlands is one of them. And if it's a new established wetland, what they'll do is they'll actually go and harvest sedges from another area, transport them, and then try and regrow them again, along with reeds and other things that are really good for also water filtration, purification, and it helps with soil erosion as well if you have them around. So sedges don't just have to grow in marshy areas, they kind of thrive in sandy soils too. We often find them in the drainage lines, specifically the purple nut sedge, which is quite nice. But look how pretty the feather is. Let me just fix it up a little. Oh, lovely, hey? Nice sort of colour brown. It's like Kirsten, is that your hair colour? A little bit. No? But too brown hair. We need to find maybe the bright red feathers from the underside of a purple crested rocker. I'm just joking. Kirsten's hair colour is more this. Anyways, I think you're going to James now, who has found himself no lions, but some Nyala.
So we've got some Nyalas in the area that we think the lions might arrive. Of course, whether they will or not, where's anyone's guess. Beautiful chestnut-coloured Nyala cows and youngsters, enjoying what's turning into a balmy late autumn morning. Well, not really late autumn, mid-autumn morning. And let's just have a look at what that Nyala's eating. Obviously it's a bush, but I think it's a potato bush. It is a potato bush. She's eating Phyllanthus reticulatus. Obviously feels like a bit of sort of takeout. For those of you who don't know, the plant there smells like McDonald's. I don't think I'm allowed to say that brand name. Like a takeout joint that has big gold letter M as the brand. It smells like that in the evening. And perhaps that poor Nyala has a hangover after a heavy night out, and that's why it's subjecting itself to that sort of form of nutrition. And I use, of course, the word nutrition in its loosest possible way. It's a bit young to have a hangover. Possibly went out on some illegal clubbing last night. Saskia, despite the sort of paucity of animals that we've seen this morning, your question is an interesting one. You say, what proportion of South Africa's wildlife is in the Kruger National Park? Much more than you'd think from what we've seen today. It's not possible for me to tell, but, I don't know, because obviously South Africa's wildlife isn't necessarily limited to the national parks, and includes all of the birds and insects and other creatures and indeed flowers that live in various parts of the country. So, I mean, if we were to go with all the wildlife, it wouldn't be nearly as much as, for example, the Fynbos region, which has got a massive diversity of flowers. But in terms of national parks, it is by far the biggest national park that we have in South Africa, and I think probably makes up about, should we say 20% of our national park area. There is a kudu now. Very unusual to see kudu and Nyala together. Beautiful male kudu. Now, we were asked earlier, remember we were talking earlier about whether or not horns get locked, and it is kudu whose horns get locked, and you can see why when they have a fight. And what's interesting now is that the Nyala, the illegal clubber that we've been looking at, was staring towards the kudu as if to say, you look a bit big to be a Nyala. Oh, listen to that behind me. That is the call of the orange-breasted bush shrike. Gorgeous call. You can hear the oxpeckers going crazy. I'm not sure why they should be shouting at each other like they are. They will also do that when they're alarmed. They seem to be settling now. I think they're settling down onto the kudu. I'm reticent to move from where we are because I think we will probably lose signal if we go forward, so we're just going to stay here for now. Ah, finally, somebody has actually found some Sunday pork, and it is stivovo.
Sunday roast indeed. Hukumuri's favourite meal on wheels. We've got a small sounder of Warthog. And this female is looking at us very deliberately. And you can see the tusks. And then you can see right at the bottom. Oh, if she opened her mouth you would have seen the lower incisors that are very, very sharp. And here comes her little brood behind her. There they are. A pile of pigs. It looks like another female, but yeah, there's two females. And they've just come from twin dams. Doesn't seem as if they've done any wallowing. Munching at the grass seeds as they go. Do have a healthy population of warthogs in the area, and they do form a very nice part of the leopard diet. And it pays for them to stay together. Much easier to catch a warthog on its own than in a small family. Crazy shady, a male warthog fully grown have an enormous amount of fight against a grown leopard. A leopard would thus select the easiest of these to hunt, and it would be one of the I don't know if you heard that. I think that was an Impala. It sounded like a very strange noise. But a leopard would deliberately choose the smallest and easiest to catch. For a male leopard to take a fully grown male warthog is very hard work, and the tusks and the teeth that are presented very easily can disembowel a leopard, so they'll very much, most of the time, select the easiest prey source, which would be one of these little piggies. Although it's not as much meat, the fight would be a lot less. So warthogs are very strong animals for their size, very, very powerful, very short and stocky, and a lot of power in them, so very difficult to subdue. And the leopard needs to get to the neck to be able to suffocate it. It can't spend any time near the front with the face and the tusks. Those tusks are very, very sharp, with a very powerful neck, very easily cut the leopard's stomach open, and that would be the end of him. So, a little bit of bone he was busy gnawing on there. Warthogs are known to practice osteophagy, which is the feeding on bones for the lack of minerals or calcium in the environment. So, it looked like a bit of bone that he was munching on. Well, off go the piggies, and so we do. Well, to the dam. We'll update you once we get there. Let's go to Herbie and Taylor, who are having something to eat.
I have never ever seen so many berries on a guarri tree in my entire life. This hairy guarri is doing the trick this morning. There was a lack of energy on the bushwalk, but now we are rearing and ready to go. However, I think it's unfair that we can use our hands to pick these berries, so we've decided now if you want to eat the berries, you have to use no hands, like the kudu. Doesn't work very well. That doesn't really work, hey? Not very good at that. I can't get anything with just trying to use my mouth. It doesn't work. I was doing it so well just now. I was doing it so well. Can I go to this one, Ferg? Where I was foraging earlier. And that I think I've eaten all the easy ones now. Searching for my target. It is. Kirsten, that's such a great idea. It's the bush version of bobbing for apples. Okay. I'm going to use my hand to hold it. To hold it up. Can't I even do that? Finally. So good. It's so tasty. The only thing though is, well, as we're doing this, I think I'm going to have stained purple teeth and a purple tongue. And it's really cool though. I can't believe none of the birds have found this tree, or any of the vervet monkeys, or even the baboons. But luckily, we've stumbled across it. Now we can still hear the birds alarming as they sort of further go that way, down towards the west. So we've instructed James, or we've asked him politely, if he wouldn't mind doing a loop, sort of all those Nyala roads and then around to Quarry Pan again, as these cats are moving quite quickly. And then there was one other thing I wanted to show you. Being attacked now, is on the sedge, something that I hadn't seen before. Actually, I've seen the little sort of, well, the flowering on the purple nut sedge before, but I've actually never seen a white button sedge flower before. And then that got me thinking, who helps with the pollination of these plants? I was trying to think, is it things like waterbuck that would naturally feed on something like a sedge because they typically hang around waterlogged areas? Is the pollen getting stuck to their coast? Are they passing it on their muzzles? Or what about little thrips? Any of you know what a thrip is? You might remember the thrips that live in the Weltheria flowers, which we've showed you under the microscope a couple of times. I know they eat pollen, so I wonder if they get completely covered in pollen and then move to the next Weltheria or next sedge or something like that, just small tiny little insect. Maybe they'd be pollinators, but I can't really work out what on earth would pollinate a sedge. Anyways, I thought it was quite pretty. I've now made a bush bouquet as well. As you can see, some lucky person in camp is going to get it. I don't know who it will be. We'll try and zhuzh it up a little bit more and add a few more things. Kirsten, you know you want it. You know you want this for your room, so you can have it forever. You'll frame it or you'll press it in a book perhaps. Herbie is smiling.
Put it in your diary.
Ooh, your diary, says Ferg.
Book of crushes.
Ooh, your little book of crushes. Yes, Kirsten, you can put it in that book. Right, enough nonsense. We're going to keep trying to find these lions and eat berries. Let's go to Steve. He's got birds.